Which after the show, those three guys, one of them, remember, I was doing crowd work, and I go, what kind of women do you like? And he goes, hot and fit.
Yeah.
And then he was walking out, and I go, I hope you find some hot, fit women. And he goes, I'm looking at one right here.
Oh, snap. Was he pointing at Liz?
No, he's pointing at me.
Oh, no, my bad.
This is open.
I'm just trying to win my brownie points.
And
Liz is going to hear this.
And I was like, what? Oh, save the jokes for us. And then later on, Carly was like, you dipshit, he was hitting on you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, damn. I'm like, well, another one bites the dust.
Dude.
Hello, and welcome to episode 16 of Rhythm and Wit, the podcast and video series where we discuss and explore the creative and artistic expressions of artists and performers in Oklahoma City and its neighboring cities, also referred to as the greater metro area. My name is David Steele. I am a bass player, a music producer, a graphic designer, a photographer, and a film hobbyist. My co-host is Nicholas Campbell. Nick is a stand-up comedian, a singer, songwriter, guitar player, electrical contractor, a husband, a father, and my best friend for over 20 years. In today's episode, we welcome a special guest, Julie Drake. Julie is a stand-up comedian as well as a single mother. Julie has worked with some great well-known comedians such as Sam Morill, Tim Meadows, and Dave Attell. We are so happy to have Julie on the show today to talk to her about what got her started in comedy, what it was like for her to get started, and what it's like being a female stand-up comic in a very male-dominated industry. We also asked her about working with some well-known legendary comedians and what kind of etiquette you should have if you get that opportunity. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and podcast feeds to keep up with new episodes that drop every Friday. We hope you enjoy today's episode and our conversation with Julie, as we greatly appreciate your time and attention.
In 5, 4.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Rhythm and Wit. My name is David Steele, and with me is
Nick Campbell.
Today, we like to welcome a special guest, Julie Drake.
Yeah, we did it, guys. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming on our show.
We appreciate it.
Yeah,
Bringing
thanks
all
for
your
having me.
experience. Yeah.
Nick, you're in charge today, so you start us off.
All right. What gives you the nerve? No. No. So.
What kind of...
Forgot, this is actually a roast.
Oh, God.
Yeah, sorry, guys. But yeah, I'm really interested. Like, I'm going to pick your brain about a lot of stuff that I'm just curious about as a comic.
Okay.
But then also being a comic in OKC and growing here. So how'd you get started? What got you interested in doing comedy?
I grew up, I loved stand-up comedy to the point where, comedy now obviously is different because of all the avenues of, the internet channels, blah, blah, blah. But when I was growing up, if a special was on HBO, a comedy special, you're about to watch something just amazing.
It's like the best of the best.
The best of the best, because there was only so many avenues for a comedy special. There was 40 channels, no internet. The only place that was doing specials that I remember was HBO. So an HBO comedy special was like an event. and I would watch them and I would record them and then
rewatch.
Yeah,
that's when we were growing up. It was the Comedy Central and all of those, and we would rewatch those endlessly when we were
at
teenagers.
SNL.
Yeah.
I was obsessed with SNL. Like, we would like recreate the skits and create our own characters and our own skits. And basically all I did in my free time with my friends was I would like put on like comedy shows, like where I'd reenact like Andrew Dice Clay
Wow.
or like Sam Kinison.
Nice, yeah.
I remember I bought like these candy cigarettes to imitate Andrew Dice Clay.
How old were you?
I was like in middle school.
Who was we? Just your friends that you?
My friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we would, like I said, we would create SNL characters, our own skits. And like one of my friends, her dad had a video camera. We'd record it. And thank God YouTube wasn't around back then. And so then I always wanted to do it, and then I got pregnant, as we all know. I talk about it in high school. And I was like, well, obviously I need to be a mom. You know what I mean? Because comedy isn't like where you can go to school, like an acting school. You have to be out in the bars and the shows. And I was like, I gotta raise my kid, you know? I was like, I'll get back to it later.
I guess there is like the improv stuff that you could, if you moved and went to the East Coast or something, that's like all you could really do, I guess.
Yeah, that wasn't possible for me, though.
Right, absolutely. But that's kind of the only avenue for a career. So you kind of didn't do it, I guess, until much later. Come back to actually doing stand-up.
I mean, I was like, comedy will always be there.
Yeah.
But
Did you think about it often?
all the time. I got to where I couldn't even watch stand-up because I was so sick that I couldn't do it. And I was like, I'm having to like work in a call center as a telemarketer, and you know, I was like, I don't want this life. I don't want to be a telemarketer. I don't want to be in a cubicle. But I was like, you know, my son didn't ask to be here. He deserves a stable life. You know, parents that are here, a good, you know, I was like, so just, it all has to wait. My kids come first. I was like, it'll be there later.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, it worked out that way. But I was just a mom first and foremost. I didn't ever want my kids to feel like they were, you know, second or third. I wanted them to know they were number one. And I wasn't mature enough. You know, and that's the thing is, I was like, what would I have even talked about as a 20-year-old? I didn't have any life experience. What would I have talked about? And I was immature, super immature, so I would have ruined any chance. So it was better to start later when I have a whole life experience. I can relate to anybody. And to where I'm more mature, and so, because you know there's a lot of immaturity in comedy.
What are you talking about?
I've
never seen that. What are you talking about?
I could see like as a young person in any kind, it's like I think it's you don't have experience, but it's like a lot of it something is drawn to the making people laugh. It's like in whatever way, just acting silly even is kind of something that I feel like, you know, I could see a young person just trying, like, or imitating other people because they like that. I don't know. But yeah, you're right. It's like,
it's an advantage to start later because I've been around so many different types of people my whole life that I can identify with them. So when I see a crowd, I can usually figure out a crowd. Sometimes I get it way off, or sometimes I can't figure them out. But I'm like, I know what to do because I know I know these people.
Because you've met so many different people.
Yes.
Instead of, that's a good point.
So it's a very, I'm glad it happened the way it did, because I would have ruined it.
Right.
For
and then
sure.
it's like you could have, and then you would have gone on and do something completely different and been miserable and not doing it.
And been like, well, I failed at comedy.
Right.
I already tried it. I failed. So it worked out for the best.
It's great.
Nice.
For sure.
Yeah. Did you, were there enough, when you got started, were there enough mics and stuff to learn and get good?
Well, and this is the big difference. So we only had the Looney Bin as our only comedy club. And Terry, the owner, would watch every mic. And she had criteria for allowing you, for not a hosting weekend, but for a host tryout. She would watch, and you'd go back, and you would talk to her, and she'd be like, you need to write more, or you didn't do this, or you didn't do that, or you did the same material you did 2 weeks ago, or, you know, she's like, I need to see different things. And the headliners and the features to this day at the Looney Bins will still sit in the back and watch the mic and give you feedback on what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong. And so that's how I caught on as quick as I did.
Yeah.
Because you have comics that have been on the road for 10, 20 years who are in all the clubs, and a club owner who's been there for 40 years that's giving you feedback and telling you what you're doing right and wrong and what you need to work on. It's like a homework assignment.
Nice.
Come back in 2 weeks. I want to see this out of your set. I want to see you work on that, and I'm going to be watching. And then you'd have to work for 2 weeks and show up and show her that you meant it. Whereas, like, the mics now, who are you getting feedback from?
Self.
Yourself.
I think you get it from your video. I guess that would be the audience.
Nobody's guiding you.
Yeah, no one's guiding you.
Was it everybody? Was everybody privy to that? All the open micers would be able to do
Get
that?
feedback.
Get feedback like that?
Oh, yeah. And I mean, for sure, because they would sit in the back. And sometimes I would go up and I would introduce myself to the feature or the headliner and be like, I'm an open micer. Are you guys going to watch the show? And they'd be like, yeah. And I'm like, would you give me some tips? Would you tell me?
You go up to them beforehand and not instead of after, because you don't even know if they watched.
Yeah.
That's what I liked about the Looney Bin. Whenever I only did the mic like maybe 3 times. I'm glad I got it. I always wanted to do it.
Yeah.
I used to go there a lot just to watch.
Yeah.
And I got free tickets.
Like a cuck.
Like, just,
I'm just here to watch.
I just want to watch you do the fun thing. Be funny. But yeah, I would just, but I liked it because you could see a show. One, it's great because the open micers get an audience.
For sure.
Yeah, and they get to see what a produced show looks like and then see what real comedians do.
I used to go when I started comedy, because open mic night's always different. I would always go to like a Friday or a Saturday show and watch a show and how a show is supposed to, because when you're at Bricktown, those comics already have an established audience.
Yeah, the show.
They're there for them. Yeah. Whereas at the Looney Bin, that crowd was just there for a show. They didn't ever know the comics usually. And you could watch a comic who the crowd didn't know, how they could win them over, how they lost them, how they won them back. I would
so you would study that.
I would study that and watch it and ask them questions afterwards, which any comic is very happy to answer questions.
Or if they aren't, then they can fuck off. I mean, you don't want their advice if they're not willing to help you, I feel like.
Yeah.
So.
But yes,
that's also a good thing to find out.
I wish we had someone at the mics who could help.
But it's kind of hard to have. We don't really have a lot of those people that. I mean, I think there are some of those people out there, but it's like having the real veteran people that know this stuff. It's like, I mean, there just doesn't seem to be, at least that we don't know any.
Well, if somebody comes to you and asks, hey, can you give me some tips? Would you?
I always help them.
Yeah.
They have to ask me, though.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to go out unsolicited.
No, because then people get mad and they're like, you're being a bitch. Sure. You're being a bully.
But also
I'm like, I'm being a bully? I'm trying to help you.
It sounds like this has already happened.
It is 1,000% happened. I was like, well, fuck you then. You can stay in open mic purgatory the rest of your life.
Right.
Hell yeah.
I'm trying to help you. Like, the only way you get better at comedy is the comics above you will give you tips and pull you up.
Yeah.
And be like, this is what you're doing wrong. You only get help by the comics working above you. And because the comics that helped me the most weren't the ones at the open mics with me, they were the ones that were working. I mean,
putting in the work and
they're doing what I wanted to do.
Yeah, they making the mistakes and learning, and it's like
the experience.
If they pass it on, like I said, I think there's a shortcut that you don't have to go through the same shit to learn on your own, and somebody else can help you.
Well, I mean,
it's very much like a trade like that.
Yeah. It's like an apprenticeship almost.
Well, where else are you going to learn this stuff? Like if you're an open micer and you're sitting next to another open micer, how are you guys going to learn from each other?
We're just comparing notes and learning new. You don't have to do that. It's already been done.
No, I'm saying you don't know the business. You don't know what's needed. You don't know any of that. Like, why would you be upset if someone who's doing what you want to do is giving you advice? That blows my mind, because I lived for advice. I would seek it out and be like, come find me after the show so you can give me tips. Every show, every time.
Well, did you start with a book or anything that kind of propelled you right off the beginning, or did you just show up and start working?
I just showed up at a mic. I showed up at the mic at Looney Bin, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna do the mic one time. I was like, I'm gonna bomb, and I'll just go back to just being a mom, and I'll get it out of my system, and it worked. It just worked out.
Yeah.
But I later read the books, which have given me some good tips. But
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. There is something to the power of, I think, YouTube today. It's like you can learn from the greats, because there are videos and things that they, you know, in a way, it's not as good because they can't give you direct feedback,
Right.
but you can take some things from that. 'Cause that's everything that I've learned in like the past 15 years has been from YouTube. I mean, everything that I do with music and everything, it's like I'm self-taught. Obviously, I'm not a comic, so it's a much different it's art, but
that's how I learned electricity.
you don't cancel my appointment.
No, your dad has taught you everything he knows.
Yeah, it took a couple hours. It wasn't too bad. It was a premiere.
Nick's like, I've only lost 3 fingers.
Yeah, I'm not gonna pay for the subscription. That's why.
He's only gotten shocked about 8 times. So.
Once a year, baby.
That's what's wrong with him. Now it's all the puzzle pieces are coming together.
I'm really good at marketing. That's it. I can get in that door the first time.
All right.
But yeah, so there's something else I wanted to ask you about, and I hate the differentiation. I mean, not hate it, not put that back, but I think there's an unneeded differentiation between female comics and a regular comic.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because it's just, all right, you're still just doing an art, and the art is genderless, I think, you know, in a way, you know.
It's just about your experience, wherever
Really.
you are. Yeah.
And it's more about your persona
Yeah.
or character that you're putting on. But being a female comic, what were some of the challenges that you dealt with?
Yeah.
God.
You said last night you were
Yeah.
one of the few female comics while he introduced you. So.
Yeah.
Well, he was like, one of the best, and I'm like, one of the only.
It's
There,
like-
it is
Let's be real.
very male dominated, like most industries even. But
It is. I mean, the first 4 years of me doing comedy, I was constantly having to fight I'm only getting booked because I'm either screwing the guy on the show or the guy on the show wants to screw me. It was just constant rumors, and I'm like, who am I sleeping with? You know, I would just say, who is this mystery comic that I'm sleeping with? It's getting me all these wonderful shows that has me in bars where I'm getting paid nothing. Who is this wonderful mystery man? You know what I mean? Well, I'm sure if a guy's asking you on a show, it's because you're sleeping with them or he wants to sleep with you. And I'm like, you know, it was 4 years of that. And guys don't go through that at all. Not at all. Or just like, one time I was introduced on stage as Pussy You'll Want to Grab, whereas every guy got, this guy won this contest, this guy's open for this guy's done this. Oh, this is Pussy You'll Want to Grab, Julie Drake. And I was like, I still have it on tape.
What the hell, man?
I know.
that sucks.
It just...
Was this after the Trump grab him by the pussy thing, or is this just something he made up right
No,
there?
no.
This
That
is
was during
before.
the Trump.
Okay.
That was during
yeah.
Trump. I mean, I had like 2 seconds to digest it.
it
Oh,
throws
and then
you
go
off.
into your set.
And go up on
Oh my
stage.
God.
And I was like, because my mind, I'm like, I want to like annihilate him.
Yeah.
But then the other part was, people paid for a show.
You have to,
Don't ruin the
you're there
show.
to do a job too.
You can do it later. And so I did my set, and then I practically threw my mic down. And I was like, "You I mean, I just after the show, I just ripped into him.
Yeah.
And then of course he told everyone that I'm like this psycho bitch, but he forgot to tell them that he introduced me as Pussy You'll Want to Grab, which is humiliating. I was humiliated.
Yeah.
I was I didn't even want to walk out on the stage because I was like, this is not okay.
Yeah.
It's not okay.
No. And I was new, so I didn't really quite know what to handle.
This was 4 years in?
No. This was right
During the first 4 years, you said, right?
No, the first 4 years is just constant rumors of me being supposedly sleeping with someone who I still can't figure out
Yeah.
who this Harvey Weinstein
Yeah.
of comedy was that I was
in
supposed
OKC.
to.
That's
in
what I'm
OKC.
saying. If you were like getting like movie roles in Hollywood or something, okay, that makes
Yeah.
I'm sure that happens, absolutely happens. But like here in Oklahoma doing comedy, like
It's like putting out for McDonald's. That's like,
I know. Now I have been offered to do shows if I would stay in the hotel room with
Right.
comics, and I'm like, I don't do that.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
don't do that. I'm like, no, I'm not going that route. So it does exist, but I don't do it.
Right.
And I'm not ever going to do it.
And it just sucks that people just lump you into that or try to make you look like that you do or whatever, for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But there was no basis of it.
Yeah,
it just came out of nowhere one day. And I was like, what is everyone talking about? Who started this?
Well, like you said, being one of the few females to even be around, it's like there's not any, I don't know, it's like an asshole could just, pick you because you're the only one to be mean about and spread rumors and things.
Yeah, and I think that, so, because it's male dominated, when you see a woman getting ahead of you,
yeah, they try to,
I think that really tugs at a guy's ego, and he thinks, oh, it's not because she's funny, she must be fucking somebody. That has to be what it is because she's getting booked more than me. So I feel like there's that aspect, and then that might have been how it started. I still can't figure out where it came from.
It's easier to do that than look inside and go, I need to work on my stuff.
Yeah. So stuff like that is a challenge.
For sure.
When you come in and you're like, say, you feel like you have to be a little bit more aggressive when you come in, or you meet somebody for the first time, or
no,
or you have to act a certain way.
And I will tell you, before you even get on stage, we're already starting in the negatives, because a lot of times people think women aren't funny, or
you just have an assumption of whatever
the assumption,
it is.
Or she's just going to talk about sex the whole time, or this, because I've had people come up to me after the shows multiple times and say, oh, I didn't think you were going to be funny because you were a woman, but you're the first female comic I've ever liked. And I'm like, that is not a compliment at all.
They just, unsolicited, they just come up to you like, oh my God.
Absolutely.
I mean, they absolutely think they're giving you a compliment, which is dumb. But that's why I think that we were talking about this earlier today, and Nick already brought it up, but like, I think we should just eliminate that. It's like, it doesn't matter who you are. And like today too, there are comics that are neither male or female, so I mean, it's like it's all about the experience of what they're expressing that they've gone through in their life and showing you who they are, and that's all it really is, or it should be. So well, like for instance, I did a show out of state, and I was the only woman on the show, and the guy that booked it was like, I'm gonna put you last, and I said, no. I said, look out at your audience. Who do you see? And it was like 90% female. And I go, these women are not going to want to sit through 4 dudes before you put a female. I said, put me in the middle. You got to give them something. That's probably.
I'm like, no one thinks about like, because the guys that he booked were they're all great comics, but they're all too similar. So it was going to be 4 dudes talking about their dick and weed jerking off. And I'm like, these women need something in the middle. And so don't ignore the female audience, because like it's great to have your friends, like your bros on the shows or whatever, but the women in the audience are constantly overlooked. They don't want to hear about.
I mean, because that's the thing. It's like, I'm sure all the guys would love to have more women in the crowds too. But like something our friend Vanessa had mentioned, she was at Lively last week, and she was really happy because you had Ava C on that show. It's like, but it's like she was like, she loves to see female comics too. It's like she was excited that you always put.
Yeah, I try to make it a diverse, like from different walks of life, like you're saying, because if you put too many the same types together, and then and then there's a
stale show of as far as like the same.
But you can try to get a female perspective, and then just different perspectives that you think would go well, and then try to make it like a,
Yeah, like at the mic last week, and I talked about this on Facebook, and then this guy came up. This guy, well, I'll tell him. This guy goes, so we had a female host, and then I went up, and this guy went up after me, and he goes, let's give it up. We got a female host and a female comic. They showed they can do it too. And I'm like having a vagina is a disability.
They can do it.
I know. It's so
and then I went to the mic this week, and I talked about it, and talked about like, having my vagina is disabled, and from my choices in men. So it pissed me off, but it gave me an idea for a bit.
That's what I was gonna say. It's like, it's great that you take stuff like that and you turn it into art, because I mean, what else are you gonna do with it besides be miserable and like let it tear you down inside. And that's why I think that so many people, that comedy is important for people that watch, and especially the people that do it. It is a therapy for the comedians themselves. So it's a good way to express your disappointment with the world often.
Yeah.
So
anyways, that's what it's like to be a female comic. It's
very hard.
It's fun, and we're always having to prove ourselves. We're always having to prove that we're not sleeping with some guy to go get on a show. Yeah.
Well, did you? So we got to about 4 years in, right? So what do you see now? All right. So we're 4 years in. When did you start going out of state?
Oh, right away.
Really?
One of my first gigs was in Missouri.
Really?
Yeah, and I think I think that might have pissed him off too, because I got road work like immediately.
Were you just willing to go out there and?
Yeah, absolutely. I was like, so the comedy scene here was different. There was the Looney Bin, and Terry had criteria for you to get booked. So I knew I was a long ways away from getting booked there, and then there was another group that did comedy, but they weren't going to book me. That was for sure. And so I was like, well, all right, well, no one's going to book me here, so I'm going to have to start networking and reaching out to other comics. And so I would I did one of my first shows. I drove to Tulsa. I did a free show. I didn't get paid. And then one of the guys there loved me, and he goes, I do a Fresh Faces of Comedy showcase. He goes, you won't get paid. He goes, but like the Looney Bin manager will be there, and there'll be some other bookers there. And I said, sure. I drove up there. I didn't get paid. And sure enough, the Looney Bin manager at that time was there, and he goes, I want to put you on a showcase. And then other comics saw me who I'm still friends with to this day, and they're like, will you do my show, or I'll send your name to my show. So
oh, nice.
I just
so you kind of just grew it out from person. I mean, meeting the right connections.
Well, just getting out there and going, well,
putting yourself in front
screw it. It's fine if I don't get paid. I mean, I'm just starting.
That's something I think a lot about with music, because I mean, you always say, I mean, I've definitely played lots of shows, and it's a lot of work setting up equipment and doing all this stuff, and get nothing. But it's like, and you shouldn't do that. I think as artists, we should get paid for what we do. And it's unfortunate it doesn't work out like that. But I think that it's, as long as you're taking something, you're getting something from it, like you're getting in front of certain people that you knew could help you, then it's worth it. I think it's you're getting paid in a different way. It still has value. So if you can look at it like that, then that's the best way to do free shows if you have to do them.
Well, I'll tell you guys. So the boyfriend I had before I started comedy was he was in theater.
Yeah. He
had studied over in Oxford. He had gone to like some I don't know what you call it now, some acting school.
Yeah.
And so he was in New York. He was doing off-Broadway. He was about to do Broadway. And he said when he was at this, I can't think of what it's called. But anyways, he said that when he was there, they told the whole class, when you're starting out as an actor or an actress, you never say no to a job.
Yeah.
You don't ever say no. It doesn't matter if you have to drive across the country, and you don't ever say no, because you never know who you're going to meet, and you never know who's going to be there.
Oh, nice.
And you have to build up your network, your connections doing that. And I remembered him saying that. And I'm like, it's the same thing, isn't it? I'm like, so I'm not going to say no to any show. I'm going to lose money, which is fine.
Yeah.
I'm going to go, I'm going to meet people, I'm going to network, I'm going to show them that I'm funny, which is like an audition, basically.
Yeah.
And I remembered him telling me that, and I applied that to that, and I'm glad I did. I mean, I lost a lot of money.
Yeah.
I lost a lot of money.
Well, I like putting it like this. Like, my dad used to go fishing. He would take trips. He would spend weekends and go fishing. He would spend all this money on all this equipment, and he wouldn't catch a fish. At least we're not being outsmarted by a fish. You know?
Yeah.
Like, we get this opportunity. It's like, all right, well, we're building ourselves. We're going to go have some fun. We're going to hang out with some fun people. So it's like, me and Cody Troutman went up and did Tulsa this past Wednesday.
Oh, the mic. Yeah.
It was fun. We met Zach Amon made some good contacts. We had some good sets. People had some conversations with us, which was nice. And then
the managers got to see you.
Yeah.
And they do recommend for booking.
And they mentioned you right when I got there. You're like, "Have you seen Julie Drake?" I was like, "Yeah, she's great." I was like, "Yeah, we had her headline. It was great." You know, like, I was like, "Oh, that's awesome." Like,
yeah.
But yeah, we went up there, and then at the end,
I'm sorry. I love that they were like,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
No.
My ego just got a little stroked. Let me have my
making
moment.
waves over here. Yeah. That he mentioned you as soon as we were, he's like, "You've seen Julie Drake?" I said, "Yeah, she's great." She's like, "Yeah, we're thinking about having her up here again." I was like, "Oh, that's cool, man." Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's congratulations.
Yeah, I had a really good week up there.
Yeah, because you did the Bricktown here, right, last Sunday?
Yeah, I did.
That was a headlining show.
That was because I gotta tell you guys the story. This is so funny. So I had just told, I was talking to a comic about, when you're in bigger markets, you never know who's in your audience because I've had comic friends go to Vegas, Denver, LA, and there's a producer for Netflix in the crowd. There's a 800-pound gorilla media producer in the crowd. There's movie producers in the crowd, and you never know. And so they'll come up to him after the show and they'll be like, "You were great. I want you in my Netflix show," or I want, or they get an agent. "I want to represent you."
Yeah.
And so I was just telling this comic, I said, "You never ever," I said, "I know we're in Oklahoma City,
right,
but you never know who's in the audience. So always go out there and just kill it. Just do your best. Never just whiff it." And so I was in Tulsa, and I was tired. I'd had insomnia for days. I'd had 3 hours of sleep a day. The crowd, I didn't have a host. I was going to have to do 30 cold, which is very difficult. And the crowd wasn't laughing, which usually is a really bad sign. And I was sitting there at the table, and I was like, I'm going to have to work so hard. I've had 6 hours sleep in 2 days. I just want to go up there and just say, fuck it. You know what I mean? And just get it over with. But then, the better sense in me goes, no, these people paid for a show. Yeah. They don't, it's not their fault you're tired. Go up there. I'm having this internal dialogue because I was so tired.
Yeah.
And I was like, I knew how hard I was going to have to work up there. And I went up and I had a really, really good set. And I was feeling good. And I went into the sound booth, and this guy came running into the sound booth, and he was telling me how much he loved me, how great I was, what a great set that was. And I was just staring at him. Why are you in the sound booth, dude? Who do you think you are? And I almost said it. And I guess my face was so confused. And he goes, oh. And it was the owner's son, the club owner's son.
Nice.
And I was like, can you imagine if I'd gone up there and just said, screw it?
Yeah.
And he's there watching, but no one knew he was there.
Yeah.
And I had just said that comment, you never know who's in the crowd. And that proves it right there. You never know who's in the crowd.
Yeah.
And I was like, I am so glad that I didn't go up there.
I bet it happens a lot to people that they don't work hard and it's they go up and whip in, they never even know that one person was there that could have changed, and led them to somewhere else because
they were just hey, he's all right.
He's the one that he texted and said, give her a headliner show.
Killer.
To that.
Because he saw me and he was like, I was like, no way. And then, you know what I mean? But I thought about that for days. I was like, I cannot believe that I almost went up there. But I mean, I knew I wouldn't, but I was just struggling with.
Right.
What does whiffing it look like? I mean,
just where you go up and you don't really try. You kind of just phone it in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Over with, like you said.
You just kind of, I'll just get through my set. I don't care.
But I think a lot of times maybe you feel like that, and then I think a lot of it is if you're prepared enough, you might not have to work as hard sometimes. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that crowd, I had to change my set because John Caparulo's crowd was primarily almost all very conservative white males. And so I was like, well, I'm gonna have to change my set for the week. So it wasn't the set that I'd prepared or gone with, and so so I wasn't used to it, but I was like, I'm gonna have to really go up there and think about it and watch their reactions and make sure, you know what I mean, that they're still on board with all this. And whereas what I mean by whiff it is I went in there very intentional and to make sure, that I gauge their reactions, watch my timing, my enthusiasm, make sure I know I'm tired, but make sure that I'm like putting everything, all my energy into it, instead of just going up there and just doing what I wanted to do. Where I wouldn't have to think as hard, where I could just be like,
oh, I see.
Where I'd be like, this is my set. I don't really care if you like it or not. I'm just going to get through the next half hour.
Yeah. You did the job. You went up. And, yeah.
It's like you were more dynamic, whereas otherwise you could just be, you know.
But can you imagine if I'd go up there and just fuck off?
Well, you wouldn't even know.
No, he would. I'm sure he would have told me either way. I would have. I would have known because he was there for other reasons, but he wanted to watch the show, and I would have known he was there, for sure, like for sure.
And then you would have felt really bad because
then I'd have been like,
knew you weren't as well as you could have done.
Yeah.
So
you never know who's in the crowd.
Never know.
Never know who's in the crowd.
Don't. That's why I'm like, if they hire you, I know comics are like, this is art, we're just having fun, but you're hired for a job.
Yeah, you also have to
you know what I mean?
That's what I think of with music too. For me, it's like I used to drink a lot. I mean, I don't drink at all anymore, but it's like I stopped drinking at all before a show because it's like that we're here, even if we're only getting paid, $20 each. It's like you're still there to do a job. You're the entertainment, so you can't be fucking off and partying and stuff. It's like you have to be focused and do your job and do whatever you have to do. And it's like you can have some fun for sure, but it's like
after the show.
Yeah, or joke around and socialize where you can, but also focus on your job and make sure you get that right.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of musicians for sure don't think of it like that, which is unfortunate. So it's good to hear. And like
a lot of comics don't either.
Yeah,
they're like, I'm just here to fuck around.
Right.
I'm like, well,
it's like they're there to party. It's like no,
they make it about them. They're like, I am just here to get my
be the star,
get my $50, be the star, get my ego stroked. Who cares about the audience? I don't give a shit about the audience.
Like there's no show without the audience.
Yeah.
So.
We need these people to come back.
And have a good time. That's how you keep a show going.
Sorry, I like to talk comedy.
No, this is great. I love this. Yeah.
You did the Put a Cork in It comedy show last night, and I was there. It was great.
It was fun.
That's something that Nick had mentioned last night, was thanking the audience, and was very, I think, appreciative of the crowd, and that's why people come back to see his shows, because you do take the time to talk to people and introduce yourself and make them feel welcome.
I think that's whenever I notice I'm a service electrician, so like that's I do the same thing for my customers. And so I was just like, well, let me just take that to this, and then but what I noticed whenever people were hosting at Bricktown is they would set them up at the door as they're leaving and kind of like, hey, thanks for coming in, and then I really like that Looney Bin, they were really good at that, walking you to your chair, taking care of you, and then they were so nice, but if I miss Looney Bin a lot just for what it was, but anyways, sorry, getting off topic. I kind of forgot what I was going.
That's what I was.
Being in service of them, is being thankful, and then asking for the reviews, and just standing up there and shaking their hand and be like, "You're important. You're important. You're the 10 of you was the reason why we got to do this." So
exactly.
That's what happened.
That's kind of a big thing that a lot of people neglect, like you said, and you don't think about, because as artists we are always focused on ourselves and what we have to do, but it's not. I think, and I say this a lot lately, is like doing art is very selfless, I think, in a way, and I think people think that the opposite, because it's like, oh, you're doing this for yourself, but really you're putting the time and energy to give something to other people. you know? That like you don't have to do that, it's like you could sit at home and watch Netflix and do nothing.
That's true. But I mean, have you, like, sometimes comics will say, you take this a little too seriously, and I'm like, but if you've ever been on a show, which I don't know if you have yet or not, but if you've ever been on a show and there's comics in front of you who just don't care and they just shit on the audience,
then
and you can see the audience is just like checked out, and then it makes your job harder. I'm like, why did you come? Like, why would you do that? Like, why would you come to ruin a show and act like that? Like, now these people aren't ever going to come back. they're, the venue's not going to want to have us back.
You make all comedians everywhere look bad in a way, because like they're never going to want to go to another comedy show probably.
Well, and then the venue's like, you pissed off the people that were here.
Yeah.
They don't want to come back. And then the people are like, I'm not going to another local show. Those people are
hurting
assholes.
The community in itself, for sure.
I mean, they spent, their night out. People have to get babysitters. It's an expensive night out. They have to buy stuff. And I personally don't like it. I'm like, if you're going to show up, at least try, please.
Yeah.
Put in the effort.
I haven't had somebody blatantly go out and just everybody I've luckily worked with has tried.
Yeah.
But
I will say I've seen it a little bit here and there, and it always rubs me the wrong way. It's like, what are you doing?
Yeah, it makes me so mad.
I think almost any kind of negativity is not great, because it's like, don't bring the room down. But it's like, sometimes you have a point to,
Yeah.
So that's fine, but it's like,
when someone's shitting on the crowd just to shit on them.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? Like,
but
I'm like, boy, I can't. I'm so glad you went ahead of me. Great.
Something I do want to ask you about is your writing process. What do you do? How do you get it done?
So my mind works a little bit differently, and everyone's needs to find their own writing process. This is just what I found works for me. I can't just sit and look at like a blank piece of paper. What I do is I pull up like news headlines.
Yeah.
And I'm really good at like firing off like one-liners, and so I'll find a headline.
Topical things.
And I'll just write like a witty play off of it, and then it kind of gets me going, and then I just start writing about things. I just let it happen. I start writing about things that have happened. Like in my day, like things that have happened at work, things that have happened at comedy shows. And I'll always find something that like will interest me enough. And I write best when I'm walking around talking it out.
Oh, so you
really?
record yourself a lot?
I do. I can't, like if I'm sitting and writing, it doesn't work as well. Like that's a great place to start.
Yeah.
But then when I get going, I have like a spare, like I have a 2-bedroom apartment, and I go into my extra room where there's like no distractions. I don't take my phone in there or anything.
Yeah.
And I'll walk around and I'll talk it out, and stuff will just come to me. It's just the way my brain works.
Oh, nice.
I think it might have something to do with the movement. I think I talk a lot about brain and body connection with the nervous system and your brain. And it's like, I know for me, I have a lot of anxiety, so when I'm stressed out or something, I'll just clean and just move, and I feel better.
That's what I do. I will clean.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, okay, well I can go throw some stuff away.
Yeah.
Or I have all of these. If I get stuck a lot, or I'm like nothing is like coming to me.
Yeah.
I have all these workbooks that someone gave me with writing exercises, which don't necessarily. I don't get jokes off of them, but it gets my brain going.
Gets you into a mode.
Yeah, it gets me into a mode, and then I'll go walk around and do stuff, and stuff will just kind of come to me, and I'll write it down. And then like last night, I did a joke that I'd written. I did it for the first time. It didn't work out. So I was like, well, we'll rewrite that joke.
Think about it some more.
Think about it some more, because they weren't biting on it.
Right. It's like you have to find maybe a better way in or something to whatever it is.
Yeah. Like there was something there, like I could see they wanted to laugh, but I was like, they wanted to laugh, they just weren't on board. So I wrote it down.
Yeah, so you can come back to it later when you're cleaning.
My mind has to be relaxed, right?
Yeah.
Like I think that's
when
why
you try too hard, it won't work.
Yeah. Like I like to walk, and so I'll go for walks without like earbuds or anything. It clears my mind.
That's what I've been doing personally. For
raw dogging nature.
Well, I only started doing that recently without headphones, because I was like, I love music, so I'm always listening to music. That's how I shut off the internal dialogue.
Yeah.
So like, but I had recently got into some like guided meditations and things, but I think the walking is a sort of type of meditation. But I took out the earphones, and it's like you miss so much of the world whenever you just plug yourself up, and it's like even just sounds of nature and things like that. There's a lot out there that.
Well, if your brain is always being stimulated, how can you have thoughts?
Right.
You can't have thoughts. And
preoccupied.
Gary Goldman talks about that. He talks about how important it is to go for a drive or go for a walk
Just
without
clear your mind,
anything,
for
and it
sure.
clears your mind.
Yeah.
I'm like, he's so right.
Yeah.
Because it gets all the clutter out.
Right.
And also, one thing he talks about that helps is if you just journal your day, because it gets a lot of subconscious stuff out of. Do you do that?
We like the morning pages.
Morning pages,
thing.
yeah.
I started doing that a while back. I like it a lot. I stopped doing it because various reasons, but I was kind of going through a lot of depression like a year ago, and doing it, and it was making it worse, I think, in some ways, because I don't know, I just had to put it away and try other things.
Yeah.
But for writing, I think, and being creative, it's hugely beneficial, because I think it forces you and kind of gets your brain used to being creative in a way of like getting thoughts onto a page, no matter what it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's great for if you're a writer of any kind. It's a very powerful tool.
Yeah.
I use it. I mean, I've been doing it for like 4 years straight.
Because
you
we
know?
talked
Journaling.
And writing like that, because it helped me with my mom stuff, and then it helped me with like I always wanted to be a comedian. So I was like, I did it before, and then I used to do it whenever I was in bands writing lyrics and stuff. But it was just always a really good tool. So I just I made it more consecutive about 4 years ago, and then it's like huge.
If you can do that every day, it'll be a vast improvement on whatever art.
If I don't do it, the motor's not running.
Yeah.
You know, so it keeps that, like you said, keeps it alive.
Yeah.
Keeps it going.
I've noticed when I don't journal that it's like a lot of junk gets stuck up here.
Yeah.
And as soon as I start writing it out, I'm like, oh, I can think again.
I thought of it when I started doing it as like it's a way to get the thought into the real world and out of your head, and then you can let go of it in a way.
Have you guys ever looked at your journals from years ago and you're like, holy shit,
I can't bring myself to do it. I can't bring myself to do it.
I'm like, I am unmedicated. I am walking around unmedicated. This is not good.
I tell Liz and the kids, because we're just in a house, you know what I'm saying? There's not a lot of room. It's just people running around.
Everybody's on top of each other.
I told them, and I write whatever. Like, I'll write if evil stuff goes in, it's getting on the page. If if good, bad, all this stuff, because I also believe like I got to write that way to be able to experience it and write and understand how to write that way, right? So like I tell them, don't look at it. Don't look at it, because it's not my fault. It's your fault if you're mad. Like, because I wrote these for no one to read them. You can read them after I'm dead.
That's the important thing, I think, is when you write like those pages, and if you're using it to really for therapy too, it's like important to know that no one is allowed to read this, and it's like so that you can really be yourself and not even hold yourself back.
So do you write with others? Do you ever write?
I have friends that I've made that are road comics, and I will bounce. Like the other day, we had a mic. I don't know if you heard. We had a mic, and the crowd didn't laugh at 20 plus comics. I'm like, 20 plus comics, and you didn't find one of us funny? Like, that's improbable. And I was so mad because I've been writing and I can't get a read on anything. And so I called him up and I was like, hey, like, we can't get a read on anything at the mic because the crowd for some reason wasn't giving anyone. And anyways, I went over my stuff with him. I wrote it and he was like, well, if you maybe use this word instead of that word, or I don't necessarily write with comics.
You get like punch ups or something from other.
I get critiques. Where they're like, this is too rough, or like, I don't understand. They critique it and then they like sort of give me tips. And they go,
it's like you can take or leave. Probably. I mean.
And so I'll go and I'll rewrite based on their suggestions, but I don't ever like write with anyone.
That's good to get the another perspective on it, and then you know. They can show you things that you might not realize
and that's what happened. He was like pointing things out that I was like, oh yeah, you're right. And so he was like, change this, change that.
That's why I've been focusing a lot. I think it's important to try to be a mirror for people. I was telling him this. It's like one of the most important things is to show people what. So many people refuse to look at themselves. This is a little off topic, but similar. I mean, as far as like...
For sure.
Because you learn so much when you do look at yourself and can critique, but it's hard because you are you. But someone else can point it out for you, and it helps to... It's a good back and forth, I think. But I think that's all art, honestly. It's like we are putting art into the world and showing people who we are, and they can say, oh, I see myself in that, and identify, and I don't know.
For sure.
That's why you get connected to certain comics, because they're more like you. Like Chad Daniels back in the day, whenever he was raising his kids, hits home with me right now. You know, his newer stuff, I still think it's good, but it's not like resonating like his older stuff did when I first started listening to it. And so it's like, all right, well, maybe when I'm older, after Empty Nester, I'll probably enjoy that part of it a little bit more.
Sure.
You know?
Because that's what's good. It's like we all have different experiences, so we have different comics that have the similar, you know, we can identify with the people that have gone through similar things as us. And then it's good to have that variety of everyone, women.
Like I had a headliner tell me once, he said, you know, you're never going to please everyone in the crowd. He goes, there's going to be people that think you're the funniest, and there's people that are going to hate you. And there's people that are going to think, yeah, you're kind of funny. He goes, and then there's people that are going to think that I was the funniest, and there's people that hated me. And he said, so just don't ever try to please anyone. And he's like, there's always people that are going to love you and hate you in every crowd. He goes, you should always try to please the crowd. He goes, but if you try to win them all over,
it's like if you beat yourself up because you,
so
you shouldn't try, you shouldn't expect that you can either.
Yeah.
I try to think of it like, think if you met a person who would just bend themselves to like how everybody wants to see them.
That's annoying.
Yeah. So that's the person you're trying to be on stage.
Yeah.
You know, that's, I mean, I assume that you just get enough people who like you and they become your fans, and then now they just show up to your show.
Well, that's like the big comics, like you said, the guys that go and that, you know, they have a fan base, and it's like they show up for that person. It's like they are that person's, they already know that comic.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different for if, you know, the people that we work with that are on this level that don't have a huge fan base, or even people that know who they are. You have to find those people. That's a struggle.
Yeah.
With
For sure.
all art, I think. But I think the joy of art is whenever those people come and tell you that they are inspired by you, and it's like that's the most incredible feeling that you can get as an artist, is whenever you see that person that could identify with your craft or in your experience. But it's, you know, still you have to keep those in mind, I think, and try to hold on to that whenever you go through this struggle that we all do.
Yeah.
And use it as motivation, because that's the biggest thing I see is the lack of motivation. It's easy to get discouraged and quit, you know, like you were saying, if you had started when you were young, and you know, it could have been much different. So it takes a lot, but we all have to find that motivation where we can.
Yeah.
So when we like compared to when you started versus now, is there more opportunities to get on a mic? Is it easier to like find places to actually
like perform
and
I mean, I talk about this a lot because I'm kind of new to this whole scene, but it seems like there's way more mics than there ever used to be, just to get opportunities in front of any audience.
Yeah, it goes up and it goes down.
Yeah.
It's like we'll get like a bunch of mics, and then I don't know, something will happen, and then we'll have like just a couple mics, and then someone will hustle and get more mics. It always goes through like these phases.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
I think a lot about lately is this wave of comedy. I think comedy is growing, particularly in Oklahoma, but probably everywhere, because of the stuff that we've had to go through the past few years, and everybody needs to laugh and to figure out how to move past all this trauma and stress and suffering that we've gone through.
Yeah.
Where it's like comedy, I always think it's like comedy makes you think, you know, it makes you think about the world and other people's experiences, and you know, you take a normal topic and turn it upside down and make people think about it in a different way. So
But we're supposed to say the things that people can't say.
right. And like I said, it goes back to that being a mirror and showing people like, oh, this can be funny too.
Yeah.
Or you can laugh at, like, I always like jokes about death in particular, because we have to learn to laugh about death, I think, because that's the only way to really deal with it. I mean, you know, it's tragic, but it's going to happen to all of us. So it's, you know, but stuff like that, I mean, that's heavy, but like,
It gives levity.
Yeah.
It helps you accept it, I guess.
Yeah.
Comics you've worked with. This is
Yeah.
a few questions I have for this. Is what's some of your favorite comics you've worked with?
Are you talking about like famous
Oh,
ones?
or anyone,
Yeah,
I
just
guess.
like kind of put you in awe. You're like, I can't believe I'm doing this right now.
Oh gosh. For sure Tim Meadows.
Yeah.
Oh,
Because
nice.
he was one of my
incredible.
favorite SNL characters, and I mean, like I told you, I was obsessed with SNL. We used to, and to be when he walked into the green room, I just couldn't believe it.
So
you
where
know?
did you work with him at?
Spokane.
Okay.
I featured for him in Spokane. I could not.
That's incredible.
Like my inner child was like, oh my god, you know what I mean?
Did you gush? Were you-
No, because no, I was always told just to stay professional.
Yeah.
Like that's your coworker.
Yeah.
Dude, let me ask you about that then. What's the etiquette? Green
Yeah.
room etiquette.
Well, so the green room is the headliner's room.
Okay.
First of all, that it's his show, it's her green room.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't want you in there, you don't go in there. I will tell you, I've heard more this year from headliners that they've quit allowing local comics to get in the green room because, like, one guy I worked with in May, Jamie Lasso, he said that he was at a show and the host was excited because it was his first show ever, and he invited all his friends into the green room, and they were drinking and yelling and woohoo,
Like
and
the backstage VIP.
and he said they were so rude, they were so disrespectful that he kicked them all out.
Wow.
He goes, that's not your green, that's the rule, it's not your green room. They don't have to let you in.
Yeah.
And if they say no, you get out. And so every headliner I've worked with has sort of like,
Yeah, you're gonna have to.
they have a routine, I guess. Like when I worked with Sam Morill, he just wanted to sit in the green room and eat and watch basketball. He didn't want to talk.
Yeah.
He wanted to decompress. And so I would leave him alone so that he could have that hour or whatever to decompress and eat and watch the game. And he was so appreciative of it.
Yeah.
Really?
That I wasn't yapping in his ear.
But he wasn't asking. He didn't ask you for that. It was just something you
I can pick up on
queued
cues.
up on it.
I
yeah.
can pick up on cues. I said, I feel weird being in here with you eating. I said, you probably just want to kick back and relax. And he just he goes, yeah. I said, well, all right, I'll see you at the next show. And he goes, thank you.
Yeah.
And
That's
it's
beautiful.
just, I know we're all excited. I would have loved to have sat in there with him
Yeah.
and talked to him and picked his brain. But he just wanted to eat his wings.
So it's like it's probably not necessarily the time, or if you really wanted to do that, you could maybe.
Well, his team was
figure it
also
out,
playing
yeah.
basketball.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I know
It's
enough
like-
from men that when their team is on, you just leave them alone. So a lot of them have their routines.
Especially the ones I
Yeah.
imagine that are on the road and working a lot, and
They're
you know,
tired.
they need to have. It's like this is the only time they have to sit and not, be around.
Well, there's times
be
where
on.
I've worked with them and they've been traveling. They got in Oklahoma City
Yeah.
a couple hours before the show. They had enough time to go to the hotel, change, get to the show. Then they're on the show.
Yeah.
And that time in the green room after like the first show is their only time they've had to decompress all day long.
Oh wow. Yeah.
And so you just have to respect it.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, a lot of comics do not know this information, and
Yeah.
and it's good to have because I didn't know. I mean, I wouldn't have. I don't think about that, but it's like I would assume the opposite as far as the green room. I would assume it's for anyone that's on the show, but it makes
The
sense,
headliner
yeah.
says no, you don't
Right.
go in there. Like I did a show this year and the headliner didn't let me in the green room until after I went up, and then he came up to me and goes, okay, you can come in the green room, you're cool. But I had to be invited in.
Right.
Yeah.
Like he shut the door and I was like,
So you kind of have to just figure it out and maybe just
and some headliners like, no, this is your
Yeah.
show, I don't care. And some, you just have to play it by ear.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't ever want to piss them off because those people in the crowd aren't there for me, they're there for them.
Right.
Right.
You know, and who am I? I'm no one. So
Julie Drake. Dude. Julie Drake.
Brian Fellows.
Yeah.
Do you remember that SNL skit?
Yeah.
No. Was that?
Yeah.
Do you remember that skit with Tracy Morgan?
Yeah.
And he was just like real arrogant. He's like, I'm Brian Fellows.
I love that.
He
That
would
was
just
our
say his
favorite.
name over and over.
He was like a wildlife
Yeah.
guy.
Oh yeah.
You know,
I do remember
you
that.
remember.
Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah.
I
That
am
was
not like
2000?
that. Not at all.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
He was so
Yeah.
good.
I do like what you told us, or when you worked with Dave Attell. Yeah, how was it have him call you up on the stage and doing the 2 mics
I
thing.
couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
I was out there just watching because I wanted to watch and learn, you know, see them. And he goes, "Where's Julie at?" And I was like, "Me?" He was like, "Where's Julie?" And I was like walking up there, and I'm like, "No." I was like internally like freaking out, but I was like, "No, just keep it cool."
Yeah.
And so he had me bump mics with him and Ian, and listen, this is why I do that. I know I don't look like, you know, I look like a school teacher or something, but I'm a really, really good roaster.
Yeah.
And so they didn't expect me to be able to roast like that. Dave Attell was truly shocked. He could not believe it. And in fact, on stage, he was like, "This is great." He goes, "The teddy bear has teeth."
I love that.
He could not believe it.
That's great.
And then he was, you know, signing stuff, and he goes, "Julie," and there's another comic from Tulsa that can co-sign. He was there. He goes, "Julie," he goes, "I am super impressed." He goes, "You did not know you were coming up, and you fucking just murdered it up there." He goes, like, "You're coming up to both shows tomorrow."
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
And he goes, "Bring the heat for Ian." He goes, "Bring the heat for Ian." And I'm like, "I will," because I was just doing off the cuff stuff because I didn't think I was going to be up there. And then we had fun the next night, and he was like, "Who the fuck taught you to roast like that?" He goes, "You do not look like you can do that." He's like, "I could not." He's like, "Man," he's like, "I just can't believe it."
That's a great.
I know.
That's a great compliment.
Where do you think that comes from, though? Is it like, did you grow up with siblings at all?
I grew up with siblings who are very, very mean to me. And then I grew up, there is a thing that my kid's dad is black, and there's a thing they used to do called playing the dozens. I don't know if you guys are familiar.
Yeah, slightly, yeah.
I've never heard of this.
You sit around and you just roast each other. You just say the worst like you just roast each other, and it would always end up in a fight.
Yeah.
Or someone threatening to kill someone. "I'm gonna go get my gun." You know what I mean?
Take it too far.
Yeah. And so I would learn. That's where I would really learn. And you can't cry, you can't get upset, because then they'll just roast you even harder. And so that's where I really learned how to do it. Hanging out with his family.
I think I'm going to bring this back to my family. I'm going to bring it back.
You know what you're doing at Christmas?
Yeah, everybody get a gift, and we're going to play, what's it called? Playing the dozens?
No, listen, I got roasted, I really roasted this guy super hard. And he goes, "Now remember, you dish it out." And I had, my wisdom teeth had come in, and they pushed my teeth forward, so I had like snaggle teeth. And anyways, I really roasted him, and he came up to me, and he roasted me so hard, I called my dentist on Monday. And I got Invisalign.
I gotta fix this shit. It's never gonna happen again.
But you're better for it.
Yeah. Pushed you to action.
But I cried the whole way home, and I called at 8:01. I called my dentist, and I said, "I need an Invisalign."
Damn.
And that's how I got my teeth straightened out.
That's how you get it roasted.
That's how hard he hurt me. And the whole room was on the floor crying, laughing, and I was just sitting there because I couldn't cry, and I was like, "God." It hurts. Like, stop it.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, so that's the story of how I got my teeth straightened out.
I don't think I want to get good at roasting. I think that's if that's what you got to go through.
Oh yeah, you're gonna have to get roasted if you do.
Yeah, dude, I love what I think of myself right now. I feel like it's good.
I spent $3,500 thanks to that roasting.
You sure that guy doesn't work for that dentist? He's like, there you go, man. Here's your cut.
That should be like a dental commercial.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Just people getting roasted for their teeth and heading down to Dr. Bailey. And he was like, they were like, "Well, we can get you in." I'm like, "I need sooner." I'm like, "We need to get this done right now."
I'm seeing this guy next week.
I'm like, "Call me as soon as you get an availability." If something, I need to be there. I mean, it hurt. It was like, okay. But thank God he did, because I probably wouldn't have fixed my teeth if that hadn't happened.
Yeah. And you wouldn't be where you are today.
No, there's no way. There's no way I could have gone up there with my snaggle teeth.
Was this a comedian or just?
No.
just
This
like
was like
that
his
was your
cousin or
friends.
something.
Oh wow.
I was making fun of him for being fat. And I said really accurate but very hurtful things, and he was like, all right, now you remember, you dish it out because I'm coming for it. And he annihilated me.
Dang.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Do you want to get to the? I got final questions if you want.
Okay, let's get to that.
All right. If there is one piece of advice that you could give an up-and-coming comic, what would it be? One piece of advice that's just kind of like your whole career accumulates to. Everything
Not to put
in
you on the
two
spot
words.
again.
2 words. No, but a bit of advice you would give a comic.
The One Piece.
Well, just something that's
Yeah.
prevalent or on top of the forefront of your brain right now.
Just keep trying.
Yeah.
I mean, we write, and just because you write something doesn't mean it's gonna work. I mean, for every 10 jokes I work, I'm lucky. You're lucky if one works.
Yeah.
So it's easy to get discouraged, but don't just keep writing. Just keep if you really have the desire, just keep at it, because eventually you'll find your voice and what
Yeah.
works. But you just have to keep after it.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah. No, that sounds about right. I wrote 50 jokes to get the 4.5 that I do for my adopted stuff.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it's a hard half. It's not a good one.
I've written
Yeah.
huge amount of pages recently, and I think I've come away with like 3 good jokes.
Yeah.
So you
But
just
you got 3 good jokes out of it. I mean, that's the thing. How could you do that otherwise?
how many
sometimes?
hours I spent to
Yeah.
get 3 good jokes. though.
But it's
Yeah.
like, I think that's a kind of a good achievement. But it's, I said too before, it's like the most creative people come up with the most bad ideas too.
But also,
Because-
but then I have to go to a mic and I
Test
have
it
to
out.
stand in front of my other comic peers, and I have to do these new ideas that
Right.
fail.
Yeah, it's tough.
And it's always embarrassing, but I'm like, if I don't get this new stuff out, I'm gonna, obviously that's what mics are for, is to try new things. So if I fail, fine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But it's still hard. You have to take it. And
But that's what I want to use mics for, is to try new stuff, because I can't keep doing the same
yeah.
stuff that I've been doing, and the only way is to do the new stuff and not be afraid of it to bomb. And then I always go home and I always make notes, and I'm like, well, we'll just try this again.
Yeah,
And
it
I'm
seems
always
like
working on it.
You're always like, you're not. It seems like you take a joke and you try it out, it doesn't work, then you'll go back and rework it, and it's like go back and back and back and.
So it gets very discouraging. Even now, sometimes I get discouraged because I'm like, if I'm like, why is some, but you never know why. I'll just figure it out later. Don't get discouraged. Just keep at it.
Keep pushing.
Keep pushing, yeah, because you'll eventually figure out your voice and what you're good at. And it is a brutal art to start, because we are the only ones that practice in front of strangers.
Yeah.
Musicians get to practice in the safety of their
I
home.
always say that.
If they mess up, no one knows. We mess up in front of strangers.
Because that's the
and
only
our
way
peers.
to practice
It's
for
the
comedy.
only way.
Yeah.
So just don't get discouraged. Just keep going. It'll get better.
Do you so I noticed, and I don't know if this is, do you do the other mic? You don't do the other locals, you just
Any
do the
other mics
Bricktown.
besides Bricktown.
Because it's typically comics only.
Yeah.
And those are, no one gives a shit no one gives a shit. They're usually outside smoking.
Yeah.
They'll go outside and smoke, and then there's 2 people staring. I'm like, they don't give a shit.
So it's for practicing,
Finding
just
the
getting it under your
crowd.
tongue, maybe.
Well, I want an audience there.
You want an audience, yeah.
I want an
to see if
audience
it'll
there.
work.
And anytime I've gone to the comics only mic,
Yeah.
everyone's just staring at me.
Yeah, it's definitely.
Or they're outside smoking, and I'm looking at 2 people, and I'm like, well, this wasn't a good use of my time.
You're right.
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
more
'cause you
bang for
need
your
to,
buck.
because you're looking for that crowd reaction so you can improve your material. And if you don't have
That's
a crowd,
what I need. I need a
yeah.
crowd reaction. So if there's a crowd there, I'll go. But if there's
Right.
not a crowd there, I don't really see the benefit other than hanging out.
Do you
Right.
try new stuff during your sets when you're
I did
headlining?
last night. I did last night. Didn't work. But I couldn't figure out why those jokes didn't work last night. I think I stumbled a little bit. I think I got one thing out of order.
Yeah, I think it's probably just finding that right
Yeah.
thing to connect with someone quickly. I mean, if I had to guess.
I saw their faces
Yeah.
and they were interested in what I was saying. and it just didn't.
Just maybe led with the wrong thing or something. Who knows?
I just didn't sell it enough because they didn't buy it. But I was like, they were interested enough that I saw them all like, where is this going?
Which is good because you can recognize there's something there that you can. It's like finding that is hard to knowing what to spend more time on and what to just let go and move on. I mean,
I'll try it again. I'll rewrite it. I'll try it again, and then if it doesn't work, well, then I'll have to rethink it. But it's unfortunate when you're there and you're like, that joke, I kind of killed my momentum that I had going. But I thought, well, I'll just put it right here, and it killed my momentum, and then I was like, well, shit.
Yeah, I think people. I mean, this might just because I'm a comic, but I enjoy the try, like watching somebody like, oh, all right, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
But sometimes it'll hit, and I feel like it hits harder just because you're like, it's in the moment.
Yeah.
So what is one of your worst bombs?
Inola, Oklahoma.
Where's that?
I've never even heard of it.
It's right outside Tulsa, like by Catoosa. And I was new, and this comic, he meant very, very well. I'm not going to bash him. He meant well. He put on 4 comics who had never been on a show. He gave them 5 minutes each at this show. First of all, though, the show started 2 hours late. And the people that were there were pissed. A lot of them left, asked for refunds because they were like, "This is rude." We have babysitters. We got to go to work tomorrow. Right. So part of the crowd left, and then, anyways, these girls went up, and God bless them. God bless them for giving them time on a show, but it just didn't work.
Yeah.
They were just way, way, way too dirty for that crowd. I was uncomfortable. I mean, they were just saying off the top stuff, and because I was inexperienced, I didn't know what to do in that situation. So I went up, and the only thing I had was like my 10 minutes. I did my 10 minutes, which was wrong for that crowd, and people started leaving. Like when I was up there, they literally left, and this lady in the front row, she goes, she rolled her eyes, she goes, whoop-oo, whoop, whoop. Oh, no. She goes, come on. She goes, come on. And no one laughed, and one guy was on his phone, and one guy was like, this bitch ain't funny. I was on stage.
Like while they're doing this.
And I'm just like sweating.
Oh my God.
And I was just like, not a single laugh, one single laugh. People openly telling me I suck. Get that lady, whoopee whoop, come on.
Oh my God.
People leaving because I got on, and I just, part of that was me because I didn't know how to bring them back in.
Right. What do you know now that would have changed it?
Crowd work, acknowledging what's going on. Yeah. I was trying to ignore what was going on and just go up there and just do my jokes because I was that funny, which I wasn't. And they wanted no part of me.
Right. But if you would have called out the moment,
yes,
and been like, "What did we just see?"
Yes,
yeah, like
acknowledge it. Yeah.
I know you guys are tired. You've been here for way too long.
Yeah. If I'd acknowledged how late it started and some of the things that like had happened before, if I had acknowledged it, it would have made it better. But I didn't know what to do.
I mean, that's something that, and nobody thinks of that. Sure, because I mean, even when John Wallen was here and he was. About his story with what's his name, John Heffron.
John Heffron.
Yeah. I can't, and I'm the first person to go up. I can't avoid that.
Yeah.
You know? And now, if you were a more experienced comic, let's say it's not your first time hosting, you would be very aware that at the door they're letting people know John Heffron's not going to be there.
Right.
I don't have to say anything, but I don't know this. So I'm taking it upon myself to be like, I have to let the audience know.
To break the news.
You know? And I'm freaking out. I don't know what to do. The feature, I go up to him, his name's Mike Eaton. I was like, you think I should like say something? And I think maybe he said it jokingly in hindsight. But he did say, tell him he's dead. And this is 30 seconds before I go on stage.
Oh, yeah.
That was a good story, dude.
And well, it's like, but he did. I think he did the right thing because I mean, he definitely said what he shouldn't have said, but he immediately called it out and started making fun of it, instead of just dying up there immediately. And you know, it's like you should call out. I think in general conversations, always call out the elephant in the room if you can, because it's going to help make everyone less stressed out and less.
Well, that means you're together because you're all seeing it.
Yeah, so that was my worst.
Yeah.
I sometimes I drive a lot and it says Inola, and I'm always like, oh god, oh god.
It takes you back. you like
I like have
shell
PTSD.
shocked. Yeah.
I'm like, oh god, it's
happening
Inola.
now. Like you have a panic attack.
Yeah, that sounds like the worst thing that could ever happen, because it's like that's like something that would happen in a movie, you know.
It was
like,
bad.
It's not doesn't actually ever happen, but
it was really bad, and they didn't like anyone after.
Yeah, it was just a
but
bad
still,
night.
it was a night. It was the longest 10 minutes. Of
Yeah.
night.
Oh my god.
I bet.
Yeah.
That's a perfect example of pushing on,
Yeah.
like pushing through.
And not giving up. And
not giving up.
Well, I was like, well, you know, I'm gonna finish my set, so I get paid, and then the guy didn't pay me. He goes, I'm not paying you for that shit.
What?
Dude, you gotta set the stage, man.
I'm like, you started 2 hours late.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I didn't get paid for that.
Jeez.
He didn't pay me because he said it wasn't worth being paid for. That was the longest car ride home too.
Yeah.
Where I was just crying. I was like, that was so embarrassing.
You didn't think of giving up though.
No.
You're-
I'm a fighter.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I don't give up easily. And I was like, but then I thought, I don't think that was my fault.
Yeah, for sure. That's
No,
good
that
to
was not your
recognize
fault.
Yeah.
That's like Zuma. Zuma messed me up in a way I don't know if I'm gonna come back from.
Yeah.
But
Why? Because of the seizure dude.
yeah, well, it was just like it was.
The whole
I know it
night.
wasn't my fault, but it was
Yeah.
just like, wow, this is like, and you still have to go. You
it's
still
like
have to.
It's a lot to deal with
Yeah.
in that situation. It's like you have to deal
Yeah,
with
I'm
it.
not. I mean, I'm joking,
that's-
obviously, but it was like, all right, that was tough, but I'll have it to remember forever.
But did you learn from it?
Yeah, I
Then
learned a
that's-
lot.
there you go.
I learned a lot. Like,
I've only learned from when I bomb.
Yeah.
yeah,
or I've been on a show where everyone does good but me.
yeah.
Those are the shows I've learned from because I get mad and I'm like, that's
Yeah,
never gonna
it drives
happen
you.
again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that was embarrassing. It'll never happen again.
That's grit, man.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah.
And then I've got one more here. It looks like Dave put on here. It says, "Is Nick a good comic?"
Of course he is.
I knew
You needed to know.
that-
You could have just.
No, I knew that you wanted to know. That's why I put it on.
I didn't.
there.
Say, I didn't. It says David wrote
You
this.
wanted to ask her if you were a good comic, so that's.
He's crazy. I would never do that. Anyways, what do you think?
Nick wrote that joke. He's the best. The best.
You heard it here, folks. All right, this is the only reason why we asked all these other questions.
the best. The best of the best.
Yeah. Well, I think we're good,
Yeah,
man.
no,
we did
thank
it.
you so much.
Yeah,
Julie,
thank
thanks
you.
so much for
talking to
coming
us.
out.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, this
Yeah,
is
and doing
great.
these shows and putting out,
Do you have
this good
anything coming up that you want to talk about? Like, I'm sure you have a show coming up.
The last week of December, I'm doing the feature set for Roastmania at Bricktown, Tulsa.
Cool.
And then I'm doing a roast battle in Chickasha. Me and Caleb McCurry are in that,
Okay, yeah.
sharpening those knives.
which sucks because I really like Caleb, but I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't
Oh,
want to
no.
say anything mean to him. It's hard for me, like, when I really like comics, I'm like, I don't want to say anything mean
Yeah.
about Caleb McCurry.
There's so much there.
That'll be fun.
God.
That'll be a good
Poor guy.
opportunity for people to come see you and your roasting skills.
Yeah.
I want to see somebody cry.
I want to go see. I didn't know this about you, I guess, or I've only seen you a couple times, but I
Yeah.
definitely want to come check out a roast.
Yeah,
That'd be
I'm
fun.
mean.
I mean,
Very mean. And then I have a New Year's Eve show.
Okay.
That I usually work for this guy on New Year's Eve. And then January is very scattered.
Yeah.
It's very, very scattered. Here or there, I don't know.
Be around. You do
Yeah,
a
I'll
lot,
be around,
so-
yeah.
where can people follow it and find it?
Yeah.
Oh, Julie Comedy on TikTok and Instagram.
Yeah.
Pretty easy to find.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
All right, well, thanks for
that's it.
having me.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Appreciate it. We'll see you
Bye.
next time. All right.
That time they were filming the Twister sequel here, and for those of you guys that don't know the first Twister, it was just them following a tornado as it destroyed the state. And the sequel is just going to follow Kevin Stitt as he does the same thing.